I'm currently on a cruise and I'm staying in the most luxurious cabin I've ever experienced. Usually when I book a cruise, I book the cheapest cabin on the ship. I don't mind where it is, and if I do upgrade, I consider it a real treat to have a window or any outside space. On this cruise though, my room doesn't just have a balcony, it has its own butler and a huge list of perks that I didn't know existed on cruise ships. The ship I'm currently on is MSC's Euribia, and my cabin was assigned a few months before this cruise. I was given cabin 16016, which is inside an area called the MSC Yacht Club. It's a luxury ship within a ship concept, and I didn't know how that would affect the actual cabin. I've never had a cabin above a standard balcony before, and this one is called a Deluxe Suite, which sounds very fancy. This is my 8th MSC cruise, and it has felt like a whole new world for me. I knew I'd have to ask my butler for cookies, but beyond that, I didn't know what I could possibly use a butler for. It's not something that I've really spent a lot of time thinking about. My greatest fear, of course, was that I would get addicted to this kind of luxury and never be able to cruise in a cheap inside cabin again. That would massively reduce the amount of time I'd be able to spend at sea. Looking at the deck plans, it looked as though my cabin was close to the reception desk and near the topsail lounge. The whole of MSC's Yacht Club is towards the front of the ship, and I was hoping that we wouldn't feel too much movement up here, as movement is often more at the ends of cruise ships. We met our butler in the terminal at check-in, and he brought us all the way to our room. Yacht Club guests do have a magic trick with the elevators that gives them priority, so we didn't have to make a single other stop along the way. I'm not sure that I've ever made it to my cabin first time without going the wrong direction on a cruise before, so the escort was much appreciated. I'm normally wandering round and round the cabin decks, I'm walking up and down the corridors, and normally having to go back on myself. It was around 12:30 when we boarded, so I was surprised to see that our room was already ready. Normally the cabins on cruise ships are ready around 3 PM, which means that you are left carrying your bag around until then. It's never been a big problem, it's not that annoying, but it certainly is better to be able to drop off your bags straight away and just start your cruise right then. I was hoping that I would be able to relax in my cabin and that I wouldn't feel too out of place. I did have visions of myself kind of afraid to touch anything because it was too luxurious, and I can be a bit clumsy sometimes. Walking into the cabin, I actually said wow out loud. That may have been something to do with the welcome on board champagne that I had, but even now I completely stand by that. Wow. The cabin felt absolutely massive, and there is so much floor space. A standard balcony cabin on a cruise is usually between 14 and 18 square meters, but this one comes in at 29. It definitely felt double the size of some of the cabins I've had before. I was instantly drawn across to the separate seating area. That is actually where I'm recording this video right now. The sofa is very comfortable, and from here I have a great view of everything. I loved the design of the room, and it felt very relaxing but not bland. I like the use of lighting. I love the artwork of the crab up here and what I assume is a squid on the other wall. Euribia was only launched last year, so it's no surprise that this cabin felt spotlessly new and there was not a single scratch or a dent anywhere. When I stay in inside cabins, I usually don't spend a lot of time in there. I just shower, I sleep, and that is about it. This room though really felt like somewhere that we would want to hang out. We are on board for 7 days and do have 2 sea days, so I was hoping that we would have enough time to make the most out of this space. Our butler showed us around our cabin, making sure to show us where things like the hairdryer and the minibar were. He said that the drinks in this fridge would be refilled anytime and that we could request anything for here. Normally when I cruise, I avoid the minibar at all costs as the items cost extra, so being able to take a drink from the minibar already made this feel like the most luxurious room that I'd ever been in. The snacks were also free for us to eat, but these ones aren't replaced. Not that you would ever need them replaced because this cabin has 24/7 room service, and there is so much food on this ship. As well as all of these drinks and the premium extra drinks package that this cabin comes with, we're also allowed a litre of spirits for the room. We chose Jack Daniels, and I'm pretty sure we'll end up bringing that one home, but that is totally fine, you're allowed to do that. Our butler explained that we could have 4 items ironed ahead of tomorrow's formal night. I'm so used to cruising and never taking anything that needs ironing because normally I don't have any way to iron it, so I did turn down that request. My sparkly dress for formal night doesn't need ironing, but this was a very good insight into what a butler can provide, things I hadn't even considered. Our butler was so friendly and so happy to do anything that I almost felt bad that I didn't really have anything for him to do. I'm really used to handling everything myself, but I did get used to it as the cruise went on. We were shown next to the wardrobe area of the cabin that has storage on down both sides, in addition to all of that storage in the main room. I love this layout here and how this bit kind of provides a separate space where you can get changed away from the rest of the room. Most cabins, like this one that I stayed in a couple of years ago, have all of the storage in the main part of the room, so having a separate wardrobe is a massive bonus. On one side there were drawers, and on the other there was long hanging space. I recorded this footage towards the end of my cruise, but I promise I did bring more clothes than what you can see here. Whoever designed this room must have had some sort of feng shui guidebook, because everything in here felt like it was in the right position. The bed was nicely tucked around the corner, away from the main door, but it also had a brilliant view out the balcony. At this point we had a view of Copenhagen, which was nice enough, but I was looking forward to visiting the Norwegian fjords on this cruise, and I was hoping that we would see some really amazing sights from here. I was expecting to see some rain. You do normally get that in Norway, but Norway is so beautiful even when it's wet. It was around now that our butler left us to settle in. You could say that he buttled off, he butlered away. I'm not exactly sure on butler terminology. It wouldn't be long though until we saw him again. I headed straight out onto the balcony to have a look around. The balcony door opens by twisting this part up, and then there is a lock up here too, which is high and it's out of reach of children. The cabin has air conditioning, which is great, and it turns off when the door to the balcony is open, which is good because otherwise the air conditioning would just be basically trying to cool or heat the outside. Most of the time we would have this door open and we would not need the air conditioning because it was a really nice temperature. The design of this cabin is the most popular kind in MSC's Yacht Club, but they also have inside cabins and they have bigger suites, some of which are split over 2 levels. The big 2-level cabins actually have bathrooms on each floor, which blows my mind. I don't even have a downstairs toilet in my house. The room that we had is available on decks 14 to 18, and there are 95 cabins available in MSC's Yacht Club on Euribia. Speaking to people out and about on the rest of the cruise ship, many people did assume that Yacht Club is adult only, but it isn't. The bigger cabins do actually hold 4 as the sofa converts into a bed. This is normally used by children, but I, as an adult, have slept on cruise ship sofa beds and it is totally fine. Having 3 or 4 people in a cabin can be a really good way to reduce the price if there are certain promotions on. Our balcony in our cabin was much longer than a regular cruise ship balcony. If this was a standard balcony, it would probably stop around here, but we had this extra part which was next to the sofa. On the balcony there were 2 chairs and a little table, and this was all very comfortable. We didn't really have sunbathing weather on our cruise, but I was told by a friend that they requested a sun lounger for their balcony, and the staff got it from the top deck, I guess. They got it from somewhere, and it was not a problem at all. Another person told me they requested a higher table so that they could work at a better angle, and they did find him one. I couldn't think really of anything at this point that I would like that would make the room better, but you do kind of need to be in a room for a while before you find out things like that. I was looking forward to spending time out here in Norway, as it is one of the most picturesque places to cruise to and one of my personal favourites. By this point my phone was telling me that it needed a charge, so I went to have a look for a plug socket and a drawer, which I would effectively call my bits and bobs drawer. I'm always a big fan of this kind of stuff drawer where I keep things like wires and plasters. Plasters is your Britishism of the week, and they are those small things that you stick on little cuts or wounds. I actually have a plaster on my finger in all content that you'll see on this cruise because of an unfortunate cheese grater accident. In total, in the cabin, we found 3 European sockets, 2 US sockets, and 3 USB-As, 2 of which were over by the bed. I've stayed in cruise ship cabins in the past where there was only 1 socket for the entire room, so 10 places to charge things was fantastic. I always bring an adapter so that I can charge multiple things off the same socket, so I really only used 1, perhaps 2, but it was great to have the choice of where to charge things. It's really annoying if you want to charge your phone, you want to charge your laptop, and there's only 1 plug socket in a really inconvenient place, like on the floor, by the door, or behind the bed, and you end up having to lay on the floor, but we had no such problems. There's so many plug sockets in this cabin. Like any cabin, of course, there are a couple of things that I think would make this even better, but more about that later. I found the perfect bits and bobs drawer by the desk, and to the right was a big wardrobe with lots of hanging space, drawers and cupboards. Under the TV, there was even more storage and the pods that go with the coffee machine. I have never ever had or wanted a cup of coffee, but you can ask for a kettle if you would prefer that instead of the coffee machine. I was far more interested in that fridge and the Pringles in there, they didn't last long. Next on my to explore list was the bathroom. Cruise ship bathrooms are usually pretty standard in design. There's a toilet, there's a sink, and there's a shower, but this one felt so much bigger. Regular cabin bathrooms are fine, but I'm pretty sure that this is as big as my bathroom at home. There was plenty of space around the toilet, lots of storage, and the shower was massive. Here I'm showing you just how big the shower was. I was looking forward to trying that one out later, and I noticed the MSC scented body wash and also the MSC diffusers. These are gifts for all of the people staying in MSC's Yacht Club, and the smell is instantly recognizable to me. If you blindfolded me and you made me walk into lots of different rooms, I could tell you without a shadow of a doubt which one was the MSC cruise ship. Having said that, I do have friends who have this scent in their house because they bought the diffuser on board, so I may be in their house or I may be on an MSC cruise ship, but either way, it is a lovely smell. All this talking is actually wearing me out, so I'm just going to get a drink from the minibar because I can. Be right back. Cheers, I'm back. I did wonder if the staff get used to it and they can't smell the MSC smell anymore. I decided that I would ask our butler, because we had a butler, and he said that yes, they do get used to it, he can't smell it anymore. Having someone to ask about life on board was really interesting and something I hadn't thought about. It was around now that our suitcases arrived in our cabin and they were brought to us by the assistant butler. I just about got my head around the idea that we had a butler, and now I was finding out that there were more butlers. In total, there are 9 that look after the 350 guests, and between them, they make sure that everyone gets where they need to go. The assistant butler did offer that we could have our suitcases unpacked for us, but I did decline that one too. I did feel like I was declining a lot when I turned down the ironing and now the unpacking, but I can't really imagine someone else unpacking my suitcase. That is something that takes me less than 5 minutes anyway, but I imagine that for some people that's very useful. They will actually repack your suitcase too, which that's all my smelly clothes, I'm fine to do that. For me, I think I would be really confused if someone else unpacked for me, trying to find all of those things. The butler might also be confused by the weird things that I have in my suitcase. For example, he might wonder why I cut the handle off of my hairbrush, and the answer is to save space, it's to save weight when I'm traveling without luggage, but that isn't something that you need to worry about on this kind of cruise. Guests who stay in Yacht Club have an unlimited luggage allowance, and some people certainly did take advantage of that. I've seen some cabins with more bags outside than clothes that I have in my real life. I put my pajamas in the drawer by the bed, and then I put my empty suitcase into the bottom of the wardrobe. What I like to do when I cruise is I wear my clothes and then I just put them straight back into the suitcase. I just leave it unzipped and I just put them in there. That way, when I get to the end of the cruise, my suitcase has basically packed itself. On this cruise though, I did have some laundry included, so I was expecting to go back digging through there, but I figured that would be a problem for future me. The sail away from Copenhagen was exciting because it is a sail away and they always are, but there wasn't really much to see from our side. I was much more interested in the Norwegian ports that we would be visiting later in the cruise. I was very relieved though that the ship didn't start moving a lot. I've been on some ships in the past where you can feel movement up high, but I'm happy to report that we never had any issues with motion in this cabin. The motion of the ocean on this cruise has been pretty calm. We have had a few patches of bad weather, but I think the ship's handled it very well. In the past, I have actually missed sailaways completely because I've been inside the ship and I've had just no clue that we were moving. The last time I cruised to Norway, I did have an inside cabin, so I was determined to make the most out of this balcony. Looking through the paperwork on the desk, I noticed a room service menu, and I knew that I'd have to try that out. I don't normally order room service if there's an extra charge, but it is completely free for the Yacht Club guests. Another free perk of this cabin that you don't get in all cabins is the bedtime chocolates that would appear each night by our bed. These would be with little bottles of water which would be replaced every day, and there would even be other chocolates or sweets that would magically appear on the desk. I say magically, our cabin was cleaned twice a day, every single day of the cruise, and that is when these goodies would arrive. After a great shower with plenty of room to get changed, we decided to head to bed. The only thing that would have made this night better was if the bathroom had any kind of night light. I don't have great night vision. We had an early start, and honestly I don't remember anything from this first night. My head hit the pillow, I closed my eyes, and I woke up the next day. I didn't even have any dreams. I didn't spend a single minute awake. The bed was so comfortable, the pillows were perfect, and the ship was rocking very, very slightly. I think that's what it was being very slowly rocked to sleep. I don't claim to know a lot about bedding. I currently have elf bedding on my bed at home, even though it currently is September, but I can tell you that these sheets and these pillows, they were of the highest quality. Whatever it is that makes bedding good, this bed right here, this bed has it. I could quite happily sleep in this bed forever. I didn't want to spend this whole cruise in bed, of course, but I'm sure if I did want to, the butler would have looked after me and they would have bought me all of my meals. At the start of this cruise, I wasn't really expecting to use my butler a lot, but the more I found out about the things he could do, the more tempting it did become. I would normally book things like specialty restaurants myself, but not only would the butler do that for us, but he would actually escort us down to the restaurant. He would press all the buttons in the lift, he would talk to the staff, we just had to go along for the ride. I'm not sure that I'll ever get used to going straight to the front of a queue, but the way that the butlers managed to move everybody out of the way, it's really amazing. On my last 7 MSC cruises, I never noticed the butlers, but I think I will do now. Our butler would sometimes phone us on the cabin phone and we could contact him from there too. There are other phones out and about around the ship, so I could have used them to call him if I wanted to. I was imagining me out on the ship getting terribly lost and having to phone my butler and saying something like, "Hello, it's Emma, I'm lost, can you come and get me?" But luckily that didn't happen on this cruise. The butler service is 24/7, but of course the butlers do sleep, so if you did need something urgently at 3 AM, you would just get a different butler. Above the phone was the cabin TV, and it was here that we watched the safety drill on the first day. Beyond that, we didn't really use this TV. All of the information that we needed about our onboard account and the bookings, everything like that was inside the apps in our phones, and we were really just having too much fun to kind of sit and watch anything. The TV was massive though, and even the TV remote has its own Yacht Club holder. The laundry bag and the drinks coasters, even those felt luxurious. It's the small things like that that I think make the difference. And personally, I think this gold just looks brilliant. I think it looks great. Whoever did this Yacht Club branding did a really good job of making things cohesive across everything. I really loved wearing my Yacht Club robe to the spa. It has the branding on the front and it just made me feel so cool. The bedding has the same design, as do the pillows, as do the towels in the bathroom. We could have had our towels replaced every day if we wanted to, but we did opt not to. I'm not sure who washes their towels after every single wash at home, but I certainly do not. Leaving the towels on the rack meant that we would use them again, and putting them on the floor meant replace them please. There was also a little bit of paper to leave on the bed if you didn't want your bedding changed. As we have this lovely seating area over by the window, we decided to order room service while we were in our first port of Ålesund. We ordered a club sandwich and a barbecue wrap, both of which were exactly what we wanted, and they came in around 20 minutes. MSC are known for their pizza, which is available in the buffet. The mozzarella is made on board, and guests in MSC's Yacht Club can order it free of charge. One day when we came back from an excursion, we decided to just stay in our cabin and we ordered a pizza. I didn't even have to phone the room service myself. We were chatting to our butler about something else, and I mentioned that we would be phoning room service and ordering a pizza, and he just took our order right then from us. He arrived 20 minutes later with a pizza in a bag, and it looked very professional. It was the proper bag and the proper pizza box. It was so yummy that I'm afraid I did eat it without pausing to take any video. Don't worry though, I of course did go back and I did find more, and for the sake of research I had more pizza so I could show you this. I did do most of my work over here on the sofa where we ate, but sometimes I would just lay in bed. The headboard was very comfortable, the bed was very soft but not too soft, and this view sure beats the view that I used to have of the office car park when I worked a traditional 9-to-5 job. We weren't expecting to see a lot of sun on this cruise, and we were actually very, very lucky. There were only a couple of times that we got rained on, and we had some glorious blue skies and very calm seas. Sometimes when we got rained on, I felt as though this cabin was missing a couple of coat hooks by the door, but this really is me clutching at straws to try and find things to improve in this cabin. I'm sure my butler would have found me a whole coat rack if I asked. He probably would have come and just held the coats forever for me if I'd asked, but I just ended up hanging them up on coat hangers. You can tell that this is a more luxurious cruise because they have real coat hangers, and on a lot of more budget cruises the coat hangers don't come out of the wardrobe because They don't want you to take them home. Another thing that makes this cabin feel very luxurious and very modern to me is the way that the do not disturb and make up room buttons work. On a lot of cruises, you'll find the same pieces of paper that you might find in a hotel on land. You hang them outside the door, anyone could take them, they could fall off. But here though, there are 2 buttons inside the room and all you have to do is press them. When we press these buttons, they light up the lights outside the cabin, which is how the cabin steward knows what we want. They can also tell if we're actually in the room or not, because when we are in the room, we put our cruise card in here, and this activates the electricity for the cabin so that energy isn't wasted while no one's in the room. That meant that Captain Hudson was often left in the dark in the evenings, but I'm not sure that he minded. I think cats have pretty good night vision. At the bottom of the hanging space near the door, there were a couple of pairs of slippers and robes. This was the perfect outfit I found for eating breakfast in bed. There were loads of items on the menu and our room service always arrived exactly at the time that we requested it for. I decided to order pancakes with berries multiple times and they were perfect. I did notice that there weren't any cookies on any of the menus, but I also knew that our butler did have magical powers. I knew that he could magic up things that weren't even on any menu, so I did work up the courage to ask him for cookies. He said, "Of course you can," as if it was the most easy thing in the world just to magic up a plate of cookies. I don't think that I've ever asked anybody for anything off menu before, maybe the odd plate of chips in a restaurant or some ketchup to go with my pizza, but I've certainly never asked for cookies if they weren't on the menu. A little later in the day, I was sat right here on the sofa catching up on some work when there was a knock at the door. It was not just any knock at the door, it was the best kind of knock at the door because it was a knock that comes from a man who is holding a plate of cookies. He came in and he put them down on the table and I honestly felt like one of those Greek gods who's just laying around in a toga being fed grapes. Just to be clear, I was not wearing a toga at this time, I was just sort of in a reclined position eating cookies, which is the best way to be. I could quite happily stay in this cabin for months or years, and while I don't doubt that I will happily cruise again in inside and balcony cabins, I will always miss these little luxurious touches and our butler with the on-demand cookies. To find out what we got up to outside this cabin, check out this video next. This is everywhere we went, this is everything I ate, and every single thing that we did. So I'll see you there in a minute.